And Paul in the book of Colossians, he or Ephesians, he asks God that God would open their eyes to the power that God exerted when he rose Jesus Christ from the dead. And that's what the Red Sea ought to be reminding us of. It was the rescue of Israel and the power of God that was exerted to rescue Israel. But the Jordan River seems to emphasize something a little different. They're entering into an inheritance. They're entering into kind of a way of life. And with that, they are called to obedience. And we're going to see that here in a little bit. They're called to advance as an army. They're called to make an act of faith, to take a step of faith. They were to step into the water. That never happened at the Red Sea. The Red Sea, they just sat there and God saved them and they did nothing. But with the Jordan River, they're called to take a step of faith, and the Jordan is at this flood stage. And beyond that, once you cross the Jordan, and it's presumably the Jordan would fill back in behind you, there was no escape. You were in that land now facing those giants, no escape. It was a step of faith to follow God into that. And I think in a sense that the Jordan River kind of foreshadows for us the Christian life, that God's bringing us into this life that he intends for his people. And it starts with a step of faith. We're called to walk by faith. Sometimes he just waits for our obedience before he reveals his power, just like he did with the Israelites there. We need to get outside our comfort zones, and we're to continue to take steps of faith rather than just sitting still. And we're to advance with the gospel and expand the kingdom, just like the Israelites were called to expand into the promised land. And we're to follow Jesus. We're going to be talking about this in a moment, what the Ark of the Covenant represents. They followed God by following the Ark. And the battles in the land seem to foreshadow our own spiritual battles. And so I think that's how those two crossings compare and contrast a little bit.